So, got an okay race for you today, guys. The beginning was kind of fun, kind of intense. Other than that, I really just kind of ended up hot lapping around and not doing a whole bunch. I've been trying out some new things with the radio. You might have heard in some previous videos, so you can hear my radio. There's no radio at this track, so none of that for today or for the next, two-ish races. And I did. Some of you might know I ran here before, not too long ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I did have some footage from that, obviously. But I put it on an SSD. Lost it when I went to Canada, so I have no idea where that went. But I'll put here. I have a little highlight of the main thing that happened there. Didn't go too well. I had brake failure, and then in the first race, when I was running in about the same position, which is first in class, and then the next race, same thing, except instead of brake failure, I had a bumper come off. And then in the last race, I just decided to suck. I got a class win, I'm pretty sure, from it, but lost all that footage. But I hope you guys enjoy the race I have to show you here today. And just to have a look at Hallett. I know, like, a lot of the Northeast guys, they're not gonna be able to come to a place like this, so it'll be interesting for them to see how it works. It's a really nice place. I really like it here. Everyone's super friendly. I mean, it's kind of crazy how friendly people are, but yeah. pretty well. That race was a qualifier, a regional qualifier for me. So I kind of needed a win there. Last time was the one I got the brake failure in, last regional qualifier I had here. So super happy with the result. Not a super exciting race, but it's just a fun track to lap. Other than the fact that it's like 90 degrees out. Last time I was here was 100. And it's pretty brutal, especially with this big old thing on my head. It's down the head a little bit, but it's worth it for the videos, right? But I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next race.